Hey guys, I'm Greg Aronowitz and this is Barnyard Effects. Well, this is what we've all been waiting for, the last week of October, which means Halloween. My friends at Geek and Sundry asked me to do something extra geeky for Halloweek, and I decided to combine Star Wars with Halloween. I love carving pumpkins and I love building stuff, so I came up with the idea of actually carving a pumpkin to look like R2D2 and then building all the other parts and making a, festive Halloween version of R2D2. And I think I'm gonna call him OCT31. The first thing we need is a pumpkin. So getting a pumpkin is my favorite part of Halloween. I love to come to the pumpkin patch and look all around, find the perfect one. Usually looking for something bigger and rounder, but this time I need a very specific, cylindrical pumpkin. So welcome to the pumpkin patch, Charlie Brown. Now that I have the perfect pumpkin, I can actually start deciding what the overall proportions of the finished droid will be. So I'm gonna start with the legs. I think it's important to build the legs and complete them before really carving into the pumpkin. I want the legs to be able to actually support the pumpkin, and even once it's all hollowed out and everything and we'll lighten it up, it still has a little bit of weight to it. So I'm gonna go with 1/2" MDF and just stack it up in layers, much like if you were building a full-size R2D2 out of plywood. I'm building the basic structure of the feet out of MDF also, but I'm gonna finish them with 1/8" Sintra so that it's really easy to work with and lightweight, and I don't have to do tons and tons of woodwork. My master plan for the completed OCT31 is to actually have him be motorized, and I'm not gonna build a bunch of animatronics or anything. I'm just gonna use some existing RC cars that I can take apart and use pieces from. I found the perfect size radio controlled Mini Cooper that fit exactly into the front foot. But in the back feet, I'm actually just using little Matchbox cars so that there's wheels, but only one motor pulling the overall unit. With the legs mostly complete, I put them aside and then grab the pumpkin so that I can start actually trying to make him look like R2D2. The hardest part of the entire process was trying to get that first even division of the dome to the body. And I did a trick that I use because I'm terrible at math. So all the, circumference and radius and I hate all that stuff. I just find mechanical ways to figure those things out without any math involved. And my trick for figuring out an exact level plane through a circular object is to take a strip of some kind of material. In this case, I used a metal shim that you see us use for molding all the time. You take your material and you wrap it around itself several times, and as long as the edge stays perfectly flush, it's a completely level surface, which is important on the R2D2 because I ultimately want to make the dome turn, and if it waves or goes off kilter at all, then you won't have two surfaces that can roll over each other. The next step was to take a small square and just draft down 90-degree lines and figure out all of the spacing of the panels, and I used R2D2 as a reference to match, but I took some liberties to fit it all within the contours of the pumpkin. And then the carving began. I used an X-Acto to trace over all of my Sharpie lines just to cut through the skin, and then just peel off that first layer. And then I just used various sculpting tools and a kitchen knife to just kind of go in and carve out all the meat and put some depth to each of the panel lines and all the various shapes that I was carving. I thought it would be fun to make OCT's eye just out of the pumpkin itself. Instead of adding on some additional stuff, I carved out that square panel and popped it forward to give it a little depth. I used a 6" ring bearing and 2 discs of 1/2" MDF in order to make a Lazy Susan to articulate OCT's dome. I want OCT31 to be very Halloween themed, so I decided to make everything look like something from Halloween. The legs, even though they're MDF, I ultimately want to look like they're made of chocolate. And I'm gonna do that by spraying them brown. The shoulder harness that goes onto R2 as a separate layer, I'm gonna put a piece of 1/8" Sintra in there and then put some white silicone caulking and squish it together so that it looks like cream filling, like he's like a devil dog or some kind of hostess cupcake type thing. Once I had all the main parts of my pumpkin droid together, I started putting on the details, which were primarily made of real candy. This always seems like a good idea at the time, and then you start and you're like, there's like no harder material in the world to use than candy. Chocolate does not like to glue to anything. But in the end, it looked really cool, so I powered through. I used a jawbreaker to make R2's eye. I used a Reese's peanut butter cup and a gumdrop for the holo projector. I used rolls of lifesavers for the locomotion power cells. I used blue Jolly Ranchers for the logic displays. I used Pez for the coin slots and wafer cookies for the vents, and black Twizzlers for his power cables. I put a battery powered light in his dome, and OCT31 is ready to go. Seems like not long ago, jack-o'-lanterns only had triangle eyes and zigzag mouths. But now, anything you can imagine, you can convert a pumpkin into. I hope you enjoyed my version of R2D2 as OCT31. And thank you, Geek and Sundry, for letting me be part of Halloweek. Is that scary?
I think I made a mistake. Maybe I should just go back to the dorm.
Vamps are real. They own Morganville.
But you're safe with us.